Hey guys, Fusebox back on Raid Shadow Legends, and I want to talk about Royal Guard, Husk. You see them all the time on the best Hydra teams, right? And I just want to talk about how you may be making a mistake if you're kind of on the lower levels, like trying to push into a 1 key on hard. I see it all the time. And now it's going to depend on who you have. If that's who you have, they do a good job. But we're going to show you how they actually are very, very much more ineffective when you're on hard and especially normal. So let's jump into it. Okay, so a lot of people are actually getting into trying to get a 1 key on normal and move into hard, right? To get a 1 or 2 key on hard. And it's a big jump. 6 million is not that bad at all after the nerf once you kind of figure out how to do normal. So a lot of people are interested in hard, and I like that, right? Because there's a lot of fun growth that happens when you start building a Hydra team. We will do a video on Hydra team synergies and like creating a template for that some other time, but today we're going to talk about Royal Guard, and I want to go over why, and Husk, and anybody that has that max HP damage. So what's really happening here? People are wanting to build a team. They're like, all right, I've got all these heroes, let me go look up the best team there is, right? And they see that Royal Guard and Husk, which are not that hard to come by, are on the best teams on Nightmare, right? You're looking at the best teams on Brutal and Nightmare. And I promise you, there's a huge difference from these two on these two. So what causes this? Then let's show it, just so you know for sure. I'm not just making this up. So Royal Guard, and also I want to make sure that if you're using them, you're building them correctly if you're on hard or normal. So we're going to go over that too. So the deal is there's so much max HP on these champions' heads, right? These Hydra heads. There's quite a bit more on hard, right? And as you move up, there's a big jump on Brutal and a big jump on Nightmare. And there are two big problems with Royal Guard, Husk, and all them doing damage. The first is simple. You're going to do less damage because you're capped on normal and a little bit more on hard. And then you finally start doing really decent damage on Brutal and great damage on Nightmare because they have more HP. You're doing a bigger hit that is 10% of that HP. So that's the first thing we're going to explore. And while we're exploring it, I also want you to see that it does not take those crazy builds. I see people sharing their builds all the time. Those crazy builds just don't even matter, especially on hard and normal. So let's jump in. Let's prove it. I'll set up a quick test. Okay, this is what we're going to go in with. We've got a Husk, 2 Royal Guards. We're going to debuff, and we're going to go ahead and put a attack up. Now, we're going to push that point a little further. The attack up, bringing anything that increases your damage actually starts to not matter with your Royal Guards and your Husk, especially again on hard and down. So real quick, this is normal, right? This is normal. Let's go in and do a quick damage assessment of what they do. And the reason I'm telling you this is if you have damage dealers built out, you may have much better options than using that Royal Guard that they're using on Nightmare, which is great on Nightmare. We'll explain that in just a minute. So I don't have books on this guy. Hopefully we land. All right, we're just going to watch one head. Let's watch this left head because all the affinities will line up there. And this Royal Guard, I'm going to show you their builds in a minute. This is a Savage built Royal Guard. None of them are built for Hydra because my clan is on hard and we're not on Brutal. And that's the reason I'm showing you this, why I'm not using them. But he has like 230 something crit damage in a Savage set. Nothing else matters. So we got 101,047. Here's Husk in a similar build without Savage though. He's 101,47. All right, same thing. And this is, I think he's missing gear. We're gonna look at him. He's like 170 crit damage. I don't even think he has all his gear on. He's really slow. And he's gonna come in at 101,47. Exactly the same because of the cap, right? They have so much HP, you can only do so much damage, a tenth of it. So yes, it looks like, okay, we had a really good first round. Now, even if you have Relentless or Reflex, what we're going to say here is we're talking about these 4-turn cooldowns to come back to that move. And then a new problem after this. You do the same damage when you decapitate a head, whereas your damage dealers do an infinite amount of more damage against decapitated heads. But just to show that's the damage he did, and let's also back out of here. Let's look at the builds just so you see what I'm talking about. This is, I don't use them on Hydra, so these are not Hydra builds. But 237 crit damage, and he's in a Savage set. This doesn't, all the rest doesn't matter. We'll kind of prove that by showing this. You don't need attack. If you're going to use them, if you are going to use them, give them HP, give them as much speed as you can, give them some defense, maybe throw a defense ring on them. And just, you don't have to hit strong numbers for hard and for normal. Okay. Now that it's going to change when you get to brutal, when you actually want to be using these guys. But that's the first Royal Guard. This Husk is not in any kind of Savage set, and he is, about 230 crit damage. Nothing else matters here, right? Now, Husk has the Provoke. Now, that does make him uniquely usable on Hydra. But anyway, he's got some accuracy for that. And I will every now and then use him just to keep that Provoke up. And then I've got the Royal Guard that's dressed up the way I dressed him. Who knows? I don't even think he's fully dressed. So he's really slow, 176% crit damage. And again, nothing else matters here, right? So he may even be missing gear. So that's who we're using. Let's jump over to hard real quick. Run in here and do the exact same test, because we will do more damage, right? Now we have a bigger HP pool. So we're going to, for whatever reason, increase attack. And remember, there's less book damage on Husk than Royal Guard. So we may be getting to that point. He needs a little crit damage, but here we go. So first hit, 203. All right. So we got more damage. That's going to be the cap though, because we're now on 203 again, no matter what the build really. I mean, because what are we, 170 crit damage with this guy, 203. So this shows you a couple things. First, if you're using them, you don't need that crazy gear that I see everybody sharing their builds, and they're talking about hard. You don't need that crazy gear. You hardly need gear at all, right? So you can make them much tankier, much faster, maybe get them in that reflex, or if you're going to use them, get them in that set that's going to get them more turns, because they don't need all that much damage. Now, this does assume that you have debuffs up, right? We got weaken and decreased defense. So here's the thing. The most damage now, and for you, if you only have so many champions built out, that might be good damage, but that only comes around every 4 turns. And the next problem is, once the heads are decapitated, that's it. Same amount of damage, assuming that the move is up while the head is decapitated, that you have decreased defense and weaken up while the head's decapitated, and that your 1 or 2 Royal Guards or Husks can actually use that ability during that moment, because that's really all of their damage. So there's a huge cap on them from hard down. Now your damage goes up so much on brutal, and then something else miraculous starts to happen. It takes forever to kill the heads. You're not going to have so many decapitated heads. By the time you're on Nightmare, you're going to get most of your damage just whittling those heads down to their first decapitation and maybe going for a second round. You're not going to be in there, just killing heads constantly like you do on normal and hard. But while those heads are decapitated, you're losing a lot of damage down here, and up here, you're getting your damage working to that point with those big max. It's about as good as it gets once you're down on Nightmare. And I would say brutal is absolutely worth bringing these Royal Guards, these Husks. So how do we compare this? Well, let's go in and let's just change these out for damage dealer. All right, so it's not about who, it's just about what. We're bringing people who have raw damage. And yes, my arena nuker is going to be like 170 speed. It's going to take a minute to get around to, and this is a single target, but it's just about the damage that they are doing. So we are going into, I believe, normal, and we were getting 101,000 per hit here, right? So I didn't bring all AoEs, but it doesn't matter. We're going to go ahead and hopefully debuff. All right, we got it. And now we can use either one of these abilities. Is a pretty hard hitting ability, but Herndig comes in and 200,000, and then an extra hit across the board. Same affinity problems as Royal Guard or Husk, so we're not going to worry about the rest of the damage. Much more damage, like 3 times the damage. And then she's a single target, but the amount of damage she's going to do, 200, and then you get 30 like 4 or 5 times. I mean, that's insane, right? I mean, he's almost dead, and we haven't even gotten to our 3rd damage dealer. So we're going to probably use this hit if we were going through it, and we almost killed 2 heads, right? A 3rd on the way, just in the same amount of time. But then there's 2 more benefits. Every other move that these champions have still do incredible damage. They're not waiting to come back to that turn. And on top of that, we're about to kill heads. Once those heads are down, we're talking about millions of damage we're doing, whereas the Royal Guards and Husks, if they even get their turn, are still doing 100,000, right? 101,000 capped. And so we'll run it. Let's back out of here. let's jump on to hard one more time, because this is where it starts to look like they're close, right? Same team. Here we were doing 200,000, like 203. But at this time, we can, okay, well, first let's just look at the comparison, right? Because now we're getting close on damage. So he's going to do close to 200,000 here, a little spread damage, same thing, almost the same thing for her, maybe even more damage. So she outshines, and Trunda's going to hit hard, right? We're just using the A2 right now. It does better spread damage, but we actually definitely are keeping up or beating what Royal Guard was doing. But again, now we're going to outperform by a tremendous amount, because we are not waiting for that one ability, and when the heads go down, the damage will be even more. So we're going to put that to the test now. We're going to let something run real quick. And another thing, if you're trying to bring, say, block debuffs, maybe you have Gerptuck, and he can put up block debuffs when you're on the Hydra. Now we're just getting into team building. If he puts the poisons on your team with Royal Guard, nothing changes, right? Same damage, capped. He puts the poisons on this team, everything changes. Okay, so what I'm going for is the ability to just keep a provoke up and hopefully block debuffs so that we can run 10, 20 clean rounds on auto and see what 2 damage dealers do, and then we just replace them in the same team with Royal Guards and Husk.
With a piece in my hand and bloodshot eyes, I walked to the water for a last goodbye. He begged so much, it clouded my mind. One thing's clear, the man's gotta die. Night makes right, so he said, when he held all the keys over our head. I lived in that grip, but now he'll learn.
Okay, so round 10, and we've killed our second head. We're starting to get 4 million. And that should just continue ramping up. We're going to keep killing heads. We're going to keep getting more and more damage. It's holding together good. So let's just real quick try this team with Royal Guard and Husk before we start getting all these other heads that are going to change the dynamics of our team. Okay, and for whatever reason, I'll make sure to use the Savage 200 speed Royal Guard and the 200 plus speed Husk with actual crit damage built in. Again, we've already showed that doesn't matter. Doesn't even matter here. But we're going to go ahead and bring the hard hitters so that their A1s hit a little harder, things like that. Full auto, same run. We'll just come back in, see what's going on around 10 to 13.
By the riverbank, caught a boat south, took off like a hurricane. With spotlights, dogs, hit the whole 9 yards. Of breathing down my neck and breathing hard. 2 weeks in a wild chase across the highways, mountains, over 7 states. Found a man at the harbor, said that he could take me across the ocean somewhere far away.
Okay, so we're round 10, 11, and we less than half the damage. But the problem is that this is going to continue getting further away from the damage we would do with it would continuously escalate with the regular raw damage dealers, because they're going to keep killing these heads faster, and they're going to keep coming back and doing more and more damage as we decapitate heads. If we did fight through the head of the red evil kill you quickly head that popped up a minute ago, you get a damage increase boost when you kill him, the damage they would do to that decapitated head, whereas this one is never going to change. And I'm wanting to go ahead and decapitate one. There, one's down finally. And now I'm waiting to see. Here's the thing. How many of those abilities are even going to be off cooldown? Like Royal Guard's about to get a turn. Let's see if we actually get lucky enough. See, it wasn't even ready. So we didn't get that ability off anyway. But even if we did, let me manual this and see if I can set it up to get that hit. I don't know if we're going to have time. Royal Guard should get one more ability. Okay. Decreased defense, weaken, big ability, decapitated head, right? We're looking at tons of damage, right? It's still 101. So that's the big problem on these lower stages, bringing these two. Let me back out real quick. So basically, I hope I broke that down to where you understand. The higher you go, the more damage you will do with people like Royal Guard and Husk. Up to this point, if you've got good damage dealers on your team, I think you're going to outperform every time on hard and normal with your regular damage dealers. And of course, we're throwing together teams to run a few rounds. I mean, when you're running it, you're going to need some kind of survivability. I'm a big fan of using revive on deaths. I like shields and, of course, some healers. But whatever it is that you use to keep your team alive, because survivability is the key if you're trying to push. Just remember, once your team's made, or if you may already have brutal teams or nightmare teams, but your secondary teams, you don't need to build out those extra Royal Guards or Husks, right? Like you see, I have 3. I have 1 Husk, 2 Royal Guards. That's almost enough to do a nightmare and brutal team alone, right? But they're not going to do me any good. I don't use them here, and that's the reason why. I just want to make sure you understood before you make the mistake of trying to emulate those teams you see on Nightmare, but not getting the same results. That's the reason why. Anyways, I hope this helps somebody out. It's not like they're a horrible idea to bring in here, but even in Relentless gear, you're not going to keep up with the kind of damage that your raw damage dealers will do in the area of the game where you're getting your damage from downed heads. Until next time, enjoy the grind.